I assumed that the world I was entering was what it said it was. I assumed that it was about reason and logic, and that when people said they wanted to make life better for Black Americans, that that's what they meant. And that when people said that they wanted to be empathy driven and make things better for, let's say in San Francisco, this is very relevant, homeless folks on the street, that that's what they meant, and that that's truly what they were trying to do.
Welcome to the Unspeakable Podcast. I'm your host, Meghan Daum. My guest is Nellie Bowles. You might know her best from TGIF, the weekly news roundup in the free press that is at once informative and reliable, and also a little like The Onion, the old Onion, the funny Onion. Nellie has a new book out, her first book. It's called Morning After the Revolution, Dispatches from the Wrong Side of History. And it's filled with keenly observed details and sharp insights about the cultural and political battles of the last couple of years. It's also an honest appraisal of her own political evolution. A self-described lesbian from San Francisco who held all the values associated with that, Nellie is now among those considered non-grata by many progressives. Her marriage to Bari Weiss would attest to that. And in this conversation, she talks about coming to terms with that, as well as her reporting on everything from Antifa militants to the incel movement. Paying subscribers to the Substack hear the whole thing. If you are not yet a paying subscriber, you're going to hear a portion before I cut you off. To keep that from happening, go to meghandaum.substack.com. With that, here is my conversation with Nellie Bowles. Nellie Bowles, welcome to The Unspeakable.
Meghan Daum, it is a pleasure to be here.
You have done something that I know firsthand is incredibly difficult to do. You have written a book about the culture wars while they are going on, in many cases in real time. You cover a lot of ground here. You talk about what it was like to work at the New York Times. You talk about DEI, homelessness, guns, peaceful protesting.
Guns.
The asexual revolution, among other types of revolutions. And it's great. It's a very entertaining read. I had a great time reading it, and I learned a lot, and I can see what an accomplished reporter you are, as well as a delightful humorist. I guess my first question is, how hard was it to do this? Obviously, you've been covering this stuff for a long time as a reporter in newspapers and elsewhere, but how hard was it to put this in a book?
Honestly, it was very sort of fun and almost therapeutic to put it into a book. I think I just needed to write about it. Like one of the reasons I left the Times was that it was becoming impossible to cover a lot of these really interesting things that were happening over the last few years. And I was obsessed with them and I needed to write about them. And it was just like crazy to sit on my hands and pretend they weren't happening, which was basically the MO at most mainstream legacy publications, to pretend like none of the revolution was transpiring at all. And it was driving me nuts. And so it felt very cathartic to just go to these places and see what I could see and write about them, or kind of tackle these topics and have some fun and let myself write freely. It felt really, really nice.
Well, let's back up a little bit and learn what you were doing sort of before we got to know you through the New York Times and now obviously through the Free Press. A lot of listeners, of course, know you through the Free Press, and they love TGIF, which is the column that you write every Friday.
The most important news analysis column in America, which you did an amazing week of when I was on maternity leave, which I'm really grateful for.
It wasn't too, that was... that was an incredibly stressful experience for me. So,
oh my God, it's a lot of work. It's way too much work. I'm trying to I'm always trying to offload the column now and be like, maybe I need a co-author.
Yeah. Well, no, you don't. I mean, you have the.
No, but it's like 4,000 words a week, and it's a lot of takes. Anyways, we're getting off topic.
Yeah. Anyway, so most listeners know you through that, but you were writing about Silicon Valley and the tech world before this. So can you actually tell us kind of a little bit about your history as a journalist?
Yeah, of course. It's I have, I think, probably a pretty traditional path. I grew up in San Francisco, and my first job as a reporter was as a intern at the San Francisco Chronicle, and I got hired there and stayed there for a little while and absolutely loved it and learned everything there. I was basically a party reporter for a while and covering galas and such, and then became a business reporter, and then eventually made my way to the Times. And I joined when I think I was 28 or 29. I think I was 28. And I was on the business desk and I was doing features, send ups of Silicon Valley, funny stories about what the tech people were up to. And it was really, really fun. And I was doing well. And so I started getting bigger assignments. Or I started being able to pitch bigger stories. I would cover profiles of kind of political figures and people in the news who were interesting to me and who were kind of funny to me or attractive in whatever way.
Mm-hmm. Can you name a few of them?
I was just thinking about Jordan Peterson, thinking, how do I describe being interested? What was it? It's influential, and people, I love people who are covered only histrionically from the left or histrionically from the right. And it was fun to kind of meet them and try to do something a little smarter. Hopefully, but I don't, who knows. And then 2020 happened, and I was wanting to cover the things that were really interesting in the year 2020. And all of a sudden, that impulse that had gotten me to where I was and had so far served me really well, of being really curious and really skeptical and liking to make fun of stuff and just kind of like having a personality that only works for journalism and couldn't do well in any other career, but like had served me very well. All of a sudden that got me in a lot of trouble. And it became a huge problem that I was very interested in what was going on in America in 2020.
And what had been your political, I don't want to say identity, but what had been your political bent for most of your life? I mean,
I was a good liberal. Yeah. I was a good liberal. I grew up I'm a lesbian from San Francisco, and I had most of the politics associated with it. And I fit into my cohort. I was the head of the Gay Straight Alliance in high school. And in college, honestly, I wasn't super political. I was mostly interested in flirting with Barnard students, but I was nicely in line with my political cohort. And basically my God at the time was prestige and prestige America and fitting in with the intellectual elite. So the New York Times was kind of like the light on the hill. It was it was everything in that worldview. And I write in the book, but the night that Hillary lost, I was at a drag bar drinking I'm with Hurricanes and was sobbing, and I was in with the cohort. And I didn't think that was changing. I didn't think that anything about that would change by being curious about what was going on in 2020 or by wanting to write funny stories about Seattle or Portland or the scenes we were seeing. It didn't seem incompatible to me.
Yeah.
And it seemed completely actually very compatible. But I quickly learned that I was very wrong.
Yeah. And actually, you just described this as the night that Hillary lost, but in the book you actually write, when Hillary Clinton was about to win, I was drinking I'm with Hurricanes at a drag bar.
She was going to win. It was wrong.
Yeah. So when were you, I don't know exactly how old you are, but when you were growing up or when you were in college and you saw you wanted to be part of the elite and, those sorts of intellectual classes were interesting to you. Did you still perceive those classes as people who were critical thinkers for the most part?
Yeah. I never questioned it. It never occurred to me. I mean, this sounds so naive now, right? I sound like an idiot saying this. And my wife read the book and she was like, Nellie, honestly, you come off as in some of these chapters, not that well. Are you sure you don't want to tone this down? But I was just unquestioning of it. I assumed that the world I was entering was what it said it was. I assumed that it was about reason and logic, and that when people said they wanted to make life better for Black Americans, that's what they meant. And that when people said that they wanted to be empathy driven and make things better for, let's say in San Francisco, this is very relevant, homeless folks on the street, that's what they meant. And that's truly what they were trying to do. And I was obviously extraordinarily naive about people's intentions and what a lot of these organizations really were doing and what was actually the result of a lot of the programs and policies that I kind of didn't question or thought, took them at face value. I when I read the New York Times motto of like, the truth is hard, I felt that in my heart.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm curious. So we should say your wife is Bari Weiss, with whom you co-founded the Free Press, and she was at the New York Times as well.
I helped build it. She's really
okay.
The engine behind it. But
I don't want to sideline you. But she's familiar to us. She was also at the New York Times, and she left in grand fashion. But I'm curious. So when she says that you don't come off looking so good in the book, is that because you come off as naive?
Well, I think at the start I come off as naive. And then there's a chapter in the book where I describe really joyfully canceling a friend. And I wrote it like in one sitting, just being very honest with myself and to describe how I felt and what I was trying to do when I did that. And I didn't want to moderate it and make myself look like a hero and make myself somehow look less like a jerk. And I don't know. I mean, she was being a little tongue in cheek when she said that, but I feel okay not being the hero of the book.
Yeah. Well, that's the definition of an unreliable narrator.
Exactly.
You make yourself the hero of a book. But yeah, I mean, that's the last chapter in the book, this story. But do you want to give us a little taste of it, of canceling this friend? What happened exactly?
Yeah. I try to write it very carefully so that it's, somewhat de-individualized. The last chapter is about the joy of canceling, and it's about a moment when...
That was a taste of my interview with Nellie Bowles about her new book, Morning After the Revolution, Dispatches from the Wrong Side of History. To hear the rest, become a paying subscriber at meghandom.substack.com. You might as well do it because you are usually not going to be able to hear the whole episode unless you are a supporting member. And there's a lot of good stuff there, including new writing that I've been doing. New writing. More of it. Otherwise, you need to know that Nellie is a reporter at the Free Press, where you can find her world-famous TGIF column every Friday. I will be back soon with another super nuanced guest. See you then.